to start the recording, and then I will be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about.
Okay.
Attackers incoming. Stop the payload. Thank you. Go. That's equals.
All right. So one thing I'm just noticing is that we're missing out on the opportunity to get our bubble going. So essentially, right, when we're playing Zarya, the number one thing that we always need to be thinking about when we don't have energy is getting energy. Because when you don't have energy, you're really not able to do too much, right? There's a very significant difference between having zero energy or having low energy and having high energy, right? It's a very, very massive difference, and you're going to be able to do a lot more when you have that high energy to work with. So therefore, getting energy and using your bubbles well becomes a very important first step. And then once you get energy, then there's steps that come after that and whatnot. But as of the moment, right, we need to be using our personal bubble to be getting ourselves energy, and we just don't really use it. So like right here would be an example where we just should essentially just sit here, fire off some right clicks, stand still and let them shoot at us, and then that would get us free energy when we bubble. And then once that's gone, then we can look for our projected bubble. But here we don't use our personal bubble at all, and then we do use our projected, which is good. Right? Maybe yeah, so that one's fine, right? Then we like kind of just hold on to our personal. We never actually use it here. We don't push forwards to use it, which just means that we're low on energy here when we want to be charging it up and getting high. Okay. Then notice that when we do use our personal bubble, we kind of immediately back off from it, right? So we push forwards, we bubble into the McCree, and then we back off immediately, which means that just a large portion of that bubble doesn't end up doing a ton, because we end up backing up away from them, away from their damage, and then like behind our Reinhardt. Okay. Going for the break there is fine bubble.
Get in there. Don't be shy. Hit me.
Okay, so now we use some better bubbles, so we are good to go in and damage.
Weak mind. Weak good.
Okay, currently we are playing way too passive in this situation. So let's analyze this a little bit. So let's go into how do you tell whether or not you've won or lost a fight? And apologies if any of this rings a bell from the years ago that we did this our last
That's
session.
so good.
But it's a review if anything else, right? So essentially here, right, we can tell whether or not we've won or lost this fight if we're paying attention to kill feed, and kill feed is a very easy way to see this. When we look at kill feed, the top right corner of our screen, we can see when people are up or down. When we are up or down 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage or a disadvantage. That means that we can play either extra aggressive or extra passive because we know that we're up or down people. When we are up or down 2 to 3 people, now that's where you have won or lost the fight. When you've won the fight, you want to be playing extra aggressive, right? Going in further than even when you're just getting normal aggressive. And then when you have lost the fight, that's where you're playing passive. You're getting extra passive, backing out, and then you're looking to let them kill you or get out. If you can, you get out, and then if you can't get out, you let them kill you. That way you don't stagger yourself. Essentially here, we're up 2 people. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus a 1, 2, 3, 4. So currently we're at a 2-player advantage, and at the very, very we should be playing extra aggressive here because this is at the very max a 1 fight. At the very I would probably say a 1 fight. At the very minimum, a heavy advantage. So we should be pressing and getting aggressive, and here we just kind of sit back. We don't really even shoot in there, and we just kind of chill, and then we back up, and then we also miss the bubble because we're not really we're looking up in the air, right, rather than down at them, right? We kind of look up here because I think we're maybe looking for a bubble on these guys, right? So then they hook the Ashe. That's a potential bubble that we could have gotten that would have saved her. And then because we're playing so far back, they actually get the free res off. So now this is no longer a 1 fight because they have that player back in the fight. So
Yeah.
want to make sure we're pressing that advantage sooner. Yeah, well, let's see. What do we do with this bubble? Okay. Make sure we're bubbling when people are looking at us and shooting at us. If people aren't looking at us, they can't shoot at us. And if they're not shooting at us, our bubble's not going to do very much. So in this situation, it did a little bit, but it didn't do a ton. And that's because there weren't really a ton of people looking at us.
Give me your best shot.
Okay, so far, I've yet to notice you bubble your Reinhardt. This is an issue as your Reinhardt is going to be the biggest target on your team, and he's going to also be the target on your team who takes the most damage. Your main tank is going to be the character in every single game that takes more damage than any other character because they're on the front line. They're going to be, like I said, they're going to have the biggest hitboxes, and they're going to be intentionally drawing the attention from the enemy team. So their team is going to be shooting at your Reinhardt more than any other character, which means two things. Firstly, it means that he is going to be the person who benefits the most from getting your bubble, right? On an average basis. That's not to say that we never bubble anybody else. We can bubble other people if it's needed. But on an average fight by fight basis, Reinhardt is going to need bubble the most because he's taking the most damage. This also means because he's taking the most damage that he will get you the most energy when we bubble him. Both because he's the person who takes the most damage, but then also because when we bubble him, he's the biggest hitbox, which expands the bubble a little bit, right? So, therefore, we probably want to be bubbling a Reinhardt. Here we bubble the Mercy when I don't really know if she's like her. I think we're maybe. I think we're actually trying to bubble the Hanzo there, which we'll get into something in a moment here. But no, I guess if we're actually trying to bubble the Hanzo there, that's actually a decent bubble because he's 1 HP, but he also doesn't. Yeah, so that bubble on the if we're trying to bubble Hanzo there is actually a lot more suitable. But let's say that's more targeted towards our earlier bubbles in the last fight we were in, as we just have yet to bubble our Reinhardt, and that could be handy, getting us more energy and getting more tanking value. Now, one thing I'm going to assume right here is that we have not adjusted adjusted your sensitivity on your bubbles as of yet. So, do you know what that is? I'm assuming not.
No, I didn't know that. I
Mm,
didn't know you could have
yeah.
a different sensitivity for, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not different sensitivity. Let me explain it. So if you go to controls and then go to all heroes and then you scroll all the way down to the bottom where you see Zarya, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
go to hero and then it gives you the option for projected barrier sensitivity. So what this means is when this is at 10, which is the lowest, it means you basically have to be staring directly at somebody for your bubble to register on them. If you're looking off of them, it won't even let you bubble them. But if you have this at
Yeah.
100%, well, then it's just going to be very lenient and it's just kind of going to bubble anybody who's on your screen, right? Might not go to who you're specifically looking at. So in this scenario where we're looking closer to the Hanzo than the Mercy when we press our bubble, right? Like look here, how we press bubble and our crosshair is closer to Hanzo than anybody else, it goes to Mercy, and then that's a bubble
Yeah.
sensitivity thing. So if you lower that a little bit, so I would recommend probably around 60 to 80. That will
Yeah.
hopefully in this situation bubble Hanzo rather than Mercy.
Right. Yeah, I just changed that just then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we also personal bubble when nobody's looking at us. So I'd like you to think. So firstly, let me just emphasize the importance of bubbles because I've already done this partially, but let me just go more in depth on that. Bubbles are everything essentially for your Zarya as a kit, right? Bubbles are incredibly important. When you get good bubbles, this not only provides your main source of tanking for your team, it also is going to give you energy. When you receive energy, you do more damage. When you do more damage, that's going to lead to more ultimates, which gets you more kills. When you also do more damage, you also get more kills naturally. When you get more kills, that means that you win more fights. When you win more fights, you win more games. So essentially, you use your bubbles better, you win more games is the long and short of it. So we want to put a lot of effort into how we're using our bubbles, and we'll go over how you can use them better. But I'd like to think, I'd like you to think of Zarya as a two-parter character, right? You're always coming into each fight thinking part 1, part 2 in your head. Part 1 is attain energy, get energy, make sure we have it. Part 2 is actually use it and do things, right? That's your 2 parts.
Yeah.
If you do not have energy, you shouldn't really be on part 2 yet, right? Part 2 comes after part 1. So part 1 happens, then you move on. So far, we're covering a lot of part 1. We haven't really covered a ton of part 2, maybe a little bit. We'll get more to part 2 later on, right, in the session. But right now, noticing a real lack of value within the part 1 because we're never really high energy. We got high energy once, and then we lost the fight, right? So high energy is big priority. Here, we drop in, absolutely nobody's looking at us, right? Mercy's turned, Reinhardt's turned, we're behind cart, nobody can look at us, therefore bubble's not going to do anything. So there we need better, personal bubble. Okay, noting that we're bubbling a squishy again when Reinhardt's right there in front of you. Okay, personal bubble was an option there as well to use. Okay, notice that when we are using personal bubble, it's when we are backed up and behind our Brig, behind our Mercy, behind our Reinhardt, and behind the cart where nobody can actually see us on their team, right? So this bubble's not going to do squat because they can't see us to do anything and shoot us. And then we did peek and then got something out of it, but more so the timing of the initial usage, right? We could have also just pressed it a second later and it would have been better. Okay, Bob Reinhardt, that was good. Okay, I think we're going to talk about something in a moment here. Okay, very nice. Good bubble. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple tinier things. Firstly, here, make sure that you are not reloading when you can be in the middle of shooting at people. I've noticed this a couple times so far, where you have the option to continue to shoot at people and continue to do damage, yet we reload. So here, when we could be shooting at Reinhardt, we're reloading when we have 71 ammo, right? Not necessary.
Yeah.
2 times where you can reload is just when you're out of ammo, but then also you can reload when there's a lull in time where there's nothing happening, there's nobody to shoot at, and reloading would be the best option. Here, reloading's not necessary, and I've seen a couple other times where that's the case, and that just means that Reinhardt gets to shoot us for free, and we're stuck here reloading. Okay, additionally, we're going to talk over a couple other tinier things here. So, Zarya, let's see. Zarya, left click versus right click, 2 different types of shooting. I guess we'll get into that in a moment real quick. Little fun tech for you is that you can move at a faster pace, right? You can move faster if you jump and shoot at the ground. I haven't seen us use this tech yet. Maybe we did it when we were walking back from spawn and I skipped it. That's a possibility. But just in case you weren't aware, that is a tech. This also can get you higher as well, give you more height with your jumps, which can allow you to travel up surfaces you might otherwise not be able to, like this, right? Do something like that. So that's going to be handy. Just make sure that when you are doing it, you're not going below your shield health, so it can just regen by the time you get back to the fight. That's going to be especially handy when you're like walking into fights, or walking back from fights to be more exact. So moving on, left click versus right click usages and when you should use them and why you should use them. Okay, essentially, left click is your most efficient form of damage. It's how you're going to do the most damage consistently, right? Right click is very inconsistent. It's a lot more difficult to land a right click than it is to land a left click. So, and it's also going to be in a lot, it's bursts of HP rather than in consistent, dwindling them down, right? So left click overall is going to be a lot more consistent, and therefore it's going to be what you want to use on people if at all possible. It's your primary fire. So far, I may be seeing a lot of instances where we're using right click. Times where we could just, maybe step forwards and use left click and be a lot more efficient. So let's talk real quick about when do you actually use right click and left click. Left click, you, like we said, you prefer, but you can only use it as long as you're within range of it, right? Do you have a range on it, and that is
Yeah.
going to be 15 meters. So whenever you're within this, you're left clicking. I've seen a lot of times where we're within this and we're right clicking, and there are some times where that's possible, which we'll go over in a moment. But for the most part, if you're within this distance, you should be left clicking, and a lot of times we are right clicking. Okay. Additionally, you can be a little bit further than that, and anything further than that, you should be right clicking. But we should also maybe be putting in an active effort to get up to that range so that we can use our preferred beam, right? So if we have the easy option
Yeah.
to just push up to here, we should push up to here rather than just sitting back and right clicking, right? Moving on, when do you right click? We just said you do it at a range, but then you can also do it when you're bursting someone down. So when somebody's low, you can right click melee. This bursts their health down all in one go. This means that they don't have time to get healed, to run away, to escape, to use abilities and whatnot, which just secures the kill. So bursting someone down can be pretty important. If you're outside of melee range, you can just normal right click that to finish them. If you're like at the 10-meter mark and further, you're probably just better off left clicking, because right clicking would just have a lot of travel time, right? And be harder to
Yeah.
hit. So right click to finish. You can also use right click if you're attempting to boop someone, which is usually when you're trying to disrupt an ultimate or an ability, right? So that is like, for example, let's say McCree flashes you. If you right click, that boops him, and then that makes it harder for him to kill you, right? And if Roadhog hooks you or hooks somebody else, you right click them, boops them, and then that makes it hard for him to follow up on the hook. So that's not going to be used all the
Yeah.
time. That's just another way that you can use it. You can also use it sometimes when you're doing big group damage, particularly like into a grab or something, right? One
Yeah.
other tiny tech thing, your right click and your grab follow the exact same projectile pattern. So if we fire right click here and we fire grab, it's going to go to the exact same spot.
Yeah.
Not a lot of times
Yeah.
will you be firing them at that far of a range, but it can be useful once in a while. So it's just a fun, important, not important tech. It's
Right.
a tech to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Traveling to route ready for battle.
So note, for example, somewhere like right here, where we have the option to, instead of just sitting here and right clicking, we probably could just push up, use this cover, and then left click Hog or McCree, right? But instead we kind of sit at this range when we're just a couple meters outside of getting close enough to left click, which should just be more efficient. So there's just options there. Okay. Also noting that we're not using, I skipped further back, but noting that we're kind of holding on to grab a little bit. Let's see when we use it.
Yeah.
Maximum charge.
Alright, so we tried to finish him off there. Try the right click melee, right? That could just burst him down. You tried meleeing to finish, but he wasn't low enough. Also just keep your eye on his health bar, because I don't think he ever really got low enough for that melee to do anything. Okay. We did have bubble to use there on our Reinhardt, which you just probably this would allow it. Like currently, we don't need to bubble. Once you get high energy, you don't need to bubble for energy anymore, right? That's where we move on to step 2. Bubbles aren't a priority. Energy is not a priority. When we're above like 60 plus, right? Maybe like 70 plus, right? On energy,
Yeah.
getting energy is no longer as major of a priority. That's when you can swap over to part 2, and that means we also don't bubble for energy, right? Here, this would be a tanking bubble, because it would allow your Reinhardt to swing without worrying about his health. It would make it, they have a Reinhardt swinging on top of him and other people shooting at him. This would also provide tanking for him, as he's probably going to be taking a lot of damage very soon here. So we don't end up actually bubbling Reinhardt, and then we also kind of like turn around there for a second, maybe unnecessarily. That's not a big thing. That's very tiny.
Огонь по готовности. 60 seconds.
Alright, so let's rewatch this for a second. So we do a longer grab, which isn't terrible. They don't have anything to eat it. That's not, so they don't have like a Diva or a Genji or a Sigma. So you're fine on doing a longer grav, and it's good that we're not holding on to it for any longer. 2 people maybe isn't like preferable. 2 people is like kind of the bare minimum of a grav, so possibly could be getting more ambitious and waiting for more people to group up before we're graving, and then that could secure more kills. But then also note that we kind of get really unnecessarily aggressive and we push very far out into the open. So we'll go over that maybe in a moment here, but just note, I guess let's go over that now, and then we'll come back to this in a second. So we're at 3 minutes 45 seconds. This is definitely something that we probably went over, but this is a reminder. Just because this is such a common thing, I don't actually. I mean, I don't know how. I've probably gone over this in the past, but in any case, right? Just general positioning. How should you be positioning? In general, if we are positioning right here, standing right here, and there's a whole enemy team shooting at us, right? They're all looking at us and shooting at us. It takes us 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover. Now from here we're safe. You cannot shoot through solid objects, therefore we cannot take damage. But in that time it took us to walk here, we died. Whereas from here we can do largely the same amount of things, except for we have cover at our fingertips, right? We can do this in half a second, which is 6 times faster than what it just took us previously. So therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? And there's cover all over the place. You have slopes, you have pillars, right, in between shots while you're reloading, when you're just taking a bunch of damage, right? You have corners that do the same thing. You have random objects that are sitting around. You have a pillar, corner, doorway, corner, right? It's all over the place. And then high grounds all do the same thing as well. High grounds are fantastic positioning. From up here, we can do this, right, where they see us, now they can't. They can see us, now they can't, right? Additionally, from high ground, most characters can't reach us, right? So not only does it all act as natural cover, also, like, 2/3 need to take the stairs. 2/3 of the characters need to take the stairway, and then the third that can get to us need to use abilities, which means that now they don't have abilities, and that's, again, additional survivability. Additionally, we can have a lot of visibility from the high ground. We can see over here, 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 and here, but when we're on a low ground, we can't see over there, or any of the high grounds, right? So that's just going to be really important to take high ground and to use cover. So far, we have not really taken high ground at all. I think I saw you on the high ground like once, maybe, when there is a high ground in this fight as an option. I'd recommend in between fights, or like when you have a big lull in time, look to go and take high grounds, because that's just going to be really important to positioning, right? And then additionally, look at this situation where we grab. Okay, watch how. Firstly, watch how this could have been much different from high ground, right? If we're up here, we can just blob in a graph, probably get a better angle, and probably maybe get 3 of them rather than 2 of them, right? Additionally, we automatically have cover. They can't reach us here, right? And it just gets us automatically close to them, right? Here, we grab. Note that we can just, rather than running in a straight line directly on top of them, note, again, another thing to note is that we run within McCree's flashbang range. Instead, we could just come over here and use cover while shooting at them, right? We'd still be in a little bit of danger, but we'd have health pack whenever it comes offline. We can back up relatively easy, but then the most important is that we have cover. This way, we don't have a McCree and Soldier able to just mow us down. Whereas what we do here is we just end up walking in a straight line directly at the McCree. This allows them to flashbang us, and then we get melted by the Soldier, right? So making sure that we're using cover there, making sure that we are not running so far out in the open, running like inside of them, stay outside of the McCree's flashbang range, and then let's see, maybe I feel like it's something else, and then that's pretty much it. Okay, swap over to Monkey.
Heroes never die.
Time's running out. Let's keep our defense up.
What happened to a bubble? What the? Did bubble break? What just happened to bubble?
Time's running out.
Oh my goodness, I got melted so fast. Alright, it's because Hog. Oh, it's because Hog is ulting into it. Alright. I was just confused as to what happened to it there. I might avoid jumping in blindly. There we leap in blindly, and that means that we don't really know what we're leaping into, and it means that we're not able, and like we might honestly just die there if they focus us down harder and they stun us and whatnot. Alternatively, we also could have just leapt up to high ground and then been able to shoot at them from a lot safer of a
Yeah.
position, right, with cover, with high grounds, able to just back up if we want to rather than straight on top of them.
I got you covered. We still need it. Going free. Shields taking damage.
Right. Probably peek over that edge, just tickle them a little bit. Rewatching this slightly. Are you aware of how to short jump?
No.
No? Okay. Because it seemed like we did it slightly there, but we didn't do it perfectly, and I was questioning whether it was intentional or not. So, let's go and just make sure that we're aware of like all the different jumping mechanics as Monkey, because there's a couple of them that, and this short jumping is probably one of the most useful Monkey techs you can learn. So,
Yeah.
on Monkey, right, you have your base jump. Base jump is going to get us, right, if we just jump normally, that gets us to here. Now, if we want to do a
Yeah.
short jump, all we have to do is hold our S key while we jump, and it'll pull us backwards, and then we can leap to right here rather than all the way over there, right? So that can put us a lot shorter and put us on top of the Mercy there rather than going past the Mercy. This is
Yeah.
especially also going to be handy when you're primaling people, because a lot of the times if you boop someone and then you jump after them, you just go soaring past
Yeah.
them, whereas if you do you boop them and then do a short jump, this lands you on top of them, right?
Yeah.
Additionally, you have another tech that you can use if you're trying to get extra distance, which is after you jump, you're going to hold your space bar, which will give you a bounce at the end of your jump. So it looks like that, and then that gets you an extra couple of feet. So rather than there, you're here. Right. Additionally, if you want extra distance, you can also look up in the air, which I think you already got that one pretty down, right? You look up, you go further, you look high, you go up in the air, right? That sort of idea.
Yeah.
Also note that you do have a very high, or I guess moderate level of mobility in the air, so you can move around and control yourself while you're midair. Sometimes people just think that they have to leap in a straight line. So if I'm, for example, trying to do like a curve here, I can leap over and do that curve over that rooftop just by using my arrow keys, as well as moving my camera
Yeah.
around, right? So just keeping that in mind as well when you're leaping around, and then that can help you with your mobility.
Traveling to route
Ready for
66.
battle.
Okay, so we come out, think here, this is where we leap on Mercy, so we probably could have gone on her, but we leap past her.
Dein Schutz in
Very
der
hot. Hey,
Patching you up. This will restore you. Eyes on the bad guys. Smoke them out of there.
Alright. Well, probably could leap after that. Pay attention to his health bar. Right, we would not be
Yeah.
in danger at all, because first off, pay attention to who's alive. Their entire team is basically dead and regrouping. Right. Additionally, we have bubble, we have team support, and if worse comes to worse, we do have primal. Which, if you think the fight's like, they have a bunch of teammates, then it wouldn't even be a bad thing to use primal, right? So any way you slice
Yeah.
it, going after McCree there just is good because you end up getting the stagger kill on him. Just to check, because you have been playing Overwatch kind of on and off. Are you familiar with that term, staggering?
No, I'm
Yeah.
not.
So staggering is essentially when you die late. So when you die late,
Mm.
that means that your teammates have a couple decisions. They can either, one, wait for you, in which case you've just wasted a bunch of time. Or 2, they can go in without you, in which case they're now going in down a player, which could mean that they lose the fight. And then additionally, this can cause stagger trains, where you go in and die late, and then your teammates go in
Yeah.
and die late, and then you do this, continuously in a pattern over and over and over again, and then it just keeps happening, right? So here, we don't want to stagger ourselves, but we do want to stagger the enemy team. It's a good thing when we stagger them. So here, if we kill the McCree, this makes it so that we essentially can waste their time and then cause them from some fight or I guess team instability, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep chasing the soldier there. There's no reason to swap over to Reinhardt. So I think something we might want to talk about real quick is sorry. Something we might want to talk about real quick is the concept of target priority. So when it comes to what do you want to shoot at, typically the answer is going to be the easiest targets to kill, right? So in
Yeah.
general, tanks are not the easiest targets to kill. They have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have shields, they have armor, they have tanking abilities, and they're the easiest characters to heal, right? So most of the time, we're not going to want to spend too much time shooting at them. And that's not to say that we never shoot at them. We can shoot at them when they're low, when they're out of position, when they're the only thing we can shoot at, right? We can shoot at them in all those instances, but we don't really want to be shooting at them when we have the option to go for other characters and act, or even seek out other characters. And so far, I would say that we've spent a fair amount of time on tanks when we could have been shooting at other characters, like when we've had the option. So an example like this, where we
Yeah.
very easily could have chased the soldier down, but instead we swap over to the Reinhardt, who's just going to be a much, much more difficult target to kill than soldier is, right? Especially when he's this far out of position into your team, right?
Yeah.
Even among DPS and supports, there are going to be easier and harder things to kill, right? So, so for example, here, who would you say? I guess not. Let's not look at this game. Let's just think in general. Who's going to be easier to kill, a Tracer or an Ana?
I don't know.
Ana's going to be easier to kill. Yep, definitely agree with that. In pretty much in any circumstance, or not in any. Sorry. You're correct, right? Ana's going to be much easier to kill. Who's going to be easier to kill, a Hanzo or a Lucio?
Probably a Hanzo.
Yep, Hanzo would be much easier to kill. So even among DPS and supports, there's still easier and harder things to kill. So when you're thinking about who should I be focusing and what is my target priority, usually at like the very beginning of each round, you should be coming up with like a list in your head of this is the easiest to the hardest things to kill. This is kind of my kill priority list. So in this game,
Yeah.
what would you think that your priority kill list would look like in this game?
Probably Mercy and Soldier.
Okay. And then go through the whole list. Just like
Oh,
go
the whole
left
list.
to right. Yeah, yeah. Hmm?
Uh, Mercy, Soldier, Moira, McCree, Reinhardt, Roadhog.
Yep. You pretty much got it straight on there, right? You just kind of do it the pairs, right? You can pair them together if you feel like they're kind of equal-ish on how hard they are
Yeah.
to kill. So, yep, you are correct. That's pretty much how the order in which you should be focusing them. So I would say that we've been doing a decent job of not focusing the Moira McCree too much, but we haven't been focusing Mercy Soldier as much as we should, and we've been focusing Reinhardt Roadhog more than we should.
Yeah.
Okay, so we turn around the focus soldier, and then immediately turn around and run away when noting that we do have primal here, so we don't really need to worry about running away. Okay. We keep kind of turning around here, so I'm not really sure like what we're looking at over in this direction. So I just probably be more conscious of the fact that we have primal, and then you can stay in the fight.
Yeah.
Okay. Focusing the tanks still during a large part of this fight. not really accomplishing very much. Look to solo spit, like, first let's go for the squishies, but then besides that,
Yeah.
solo out people and look to pin them into corners, because that's going to make it a lot easier for you to kill them if they're pinned into a corner, because
Yeah.
you can't accidentally boop them away from yourself. Here, look to dodge out of his charge, because he does charge from very far away here, and we do also have a leap as an option. So this is probably a pretty easy charge if we're watching for it, so keep your eyes and ears open.
Rally to me.
Okay. Notice they were diving straight at a Roadhog. Like we said, pretty much the hardest thing to kill when there's a soldier like
Yeah.
isolated on his own right there. One of the easiest things we said to kill. This is a pretty massive thing. There's a I guess, let me think about it this way. There's a slight difference between Zarya and Winston, right? And that is the kind of that criteria of you look at tanks when they're the only thing you can look at. Winston has the
Yeah.
option to just immediately leap past tanks. They're a lot of times they're not something that he is forced to look at, whereas Zarya sometimes is going to have tanks in her face and kind of has to look at tanks sometimes, right? Not all the times. She still has her ways to get around them, but in a lot of cases, she's going to have tanks in her face. Winston, it's not the case. So we should be focusing, the squishies more than we are here. Okay, and then we're looking at Reinhardt there. Oh, we get shattered. Okay. Alright, and then we kind of like leap forwards. I might recommend like leaping up there. Unless we get res.
Thanks, Dr. Ziegler. Barrier
Make sure you're meleeing as a finisher, so melee when she's low, and then that way you can burst her down with that melee, rather than just kind of adding in a random melee and then not really doing very much. Oh, that's very juicy damage. Alright, not a lot we could do at that point. The fight was pretty much lost.
This will protect us.
Okay, there we leap away very, very fast. We still had we had most of our health. We had like 2/3 of our health, and then besides that, we didn't really utilize our bubble a ton. I guess like here we could have just done something like this and shot at them for free while we're behind bubble. Instead we kind of bubble, shoot at them for half a second, and then we leap away immediately. So we just didn't really accomplish very much with that. Sticking around longer means you're doing more damage, getting more ult charge, possibly getting more kills, but then also means you're doing more tanking for your team and creating more space. Here in this situation, there's usually, in most cases, you want to use Primal as a get out of jail free card. So what you can do is when you get Primal, rather than just popping it immediately here, since we had 500 HP in a leap, we could probably like dive straight into their team, cause a big distraction. This kind of makes it so that your health is being efficient, and then you can do a lot of damage before you're finally forced into your primal, and then you can keep going and keep getting aggressive. So whenever you have primal, just get extra aggressive rather than just kind of popping it immediately. We want to get aggressive, use that 500 HP, and then look to primal. Okay. Additionally, look here, like here you want to be looking to focus something out. There's an example of where short jumping really would have made a big difference. So like we just kind of leap straight past them rather than doing that short jump, which probably would get us on top of them. Okay, good hook dodge there. Alright, and then might recommend if you're trying to get away from a Roadhog, don't run into a close cramped quarters, because then you can't use your jump. Here we can just like walk forwards an inch and then leap forwards up here, grab the health pack, and then we're good.
Yeah.
Onward and
Ready, one.
Alright, so they're on Bastion now. Alright, So we're going to talk about the difference between hard diving and soft diving. I'm going to maybe assume that you don't know the difference. Are you familiar with those terms at all?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah,
Somewhat.
isn't
Okay.
hard diving? Yeah, when you go full in, and then soft diving is just trying to get them out of a position.
Yeah, yeah, I'll define them for you and then also explain when you want to be using each. So hard diving is essentially, like you said, diving in, you're full committing with the intention of getting a kill and getting really aggressive. Usually this means that you're using both of your abilities, you're using jump and you're using bubble, you're going in really hard and getting really aggressive. Currently, what we're doing right now is a hard dive because we leap straight on top of their entire team, right? We jump in, we bubble, we're going really aggressive. This is a hard dive currently. So a soft dive is going in not necessarily with the intention of securing a kill. You're not hard aggressing. Instead, you are aggressing with the objective of creating space, because when you shoot at them and they look at you, that means that now they're looking at you and not your team, right? That is space created. Then this also gets you damage. This puts you, for example, what we're doing right now, this is getting a lot of big group damage, which gets us ult charge, which is another objective. We're trying to get our ult so that we can hard commit, because you can hard commit when you get it. And then on top of that, we can look to get kills if you see the opportunities for it, right? And then you have the very easy option of getting out. So one of the main differences with hard dive versus soft dive is soft dive, usually you're not using leap. You can, but a lot of times you're not. So here, think for example, what if we just, instead of leaping directly on top of them, what if we just walk up here? And then we could just honestly shoot at them from up here, but we could also drop and bubble, and then we have leap rather than having to wait 4 seconds, in which time Hog might hook us and we're dead, or Bastion might turn and we're dead. Instead, we just have the easy option to leap back up to the high ground and then we're safe, right? So that would be an example of soft diving, the difference. Using leap to jump on top of them versus using leap as an escape option. Especially at higher ranks, you're going to be punished for this because they're going to look at you faster and you will die within that 4 seconds, right? So you always want to be
Yeah,
playing as if you're at the higher rank, because if you aren't playing like you're at that higher rank, you can't hang with them, and that means you can't really climb to get there, right? Um,
yeah,
so some more explanations for some things. So you can use your leap to engage in a soft dive if you're soft diving to a high ground, right? So
Imagination
that
is
would
the
mean
essence of
that
discovery.
if we are, like, let's say that they have the Bastion set up and they're all like up here, right? If we're down here,
yeah,
we can dive up, shoot at them for a little bit, and then once we feel pressured, all we have to do is drop, and then that like puts us far away from them. It makes it so we have cover to use, and then by the time like we get down here, we might be very close to getting our leap again. That's kind of the
yeah,
exception for when you can use leap. In a lot of other cases, you want to use leap as the escape option. A lot of times soft
yeah,
diving is easiest when you have a high ground to come from, because we can come up to a high ground, we can get right above them, wait for jump, and then just drop straight on top of them. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Once we feel like we're low or about to get stunned or we're about to die, then we leap out. We wait for our abilities, we get healing, we rinse and repeat, we go back in. Now, if you
yeah,
are not on a high ground, you can look to just walk forwards and close that distance like so. You can kind of do a leap if you're doing it kind of like a safe leap, if that makes sense. So like I could maybe do something like this and just kind of get a little bit aggressive, but not really. I can use my teammates to walk forwards, right? You have a lot of different options with it. Like I can also, another example of soft diving would be me leaping somewhere, kind of, oh, like I think I can get up there. Would be me leaping somewhere to set up for the dive, right? So I can leap up here, wait a couple seconds for my jump to get back, and then drop on them, right? That way I'm able to
yeah,
do it, right? So that's another example of how we can close that distance to them,
Fundamental.
right? Now, when do you actually hard dive, right? Because soft diving essentially happens anytime you're not hard diving, right? You hard dive when you see opportunities. So you get when you like see somebody's isolated off on their own, right? You can hard dive into them, get the kill. You can hard dive when you have your ultimate, because that's like we said, get out of jail free card. You can go in super aggressive, ult, boop them around, right? Leap around, pin people in the corners, right? You want to do that. Oh, he died. Pin him in the corners because then you can like kind of do this and just kill him very easily.
Yeah.
You can hard aggress if you have like your entire team coming with you, right? You're doing a hard dive as a whole team. You can hard aggress if you're already significantly winning the fight. You can hard aggress if your whole team is using a bunch of ultimates or a bunch of abilities, right? It's just gonna be you hard aggress when you can. If you can't, then you use soft dive, right? And that's essentially
Yeah.
how it works out. And we've been doing a couple hard dives when we should be doing soft dives.
Traveling to route ready for battle. 5.
Okay, so we jump on straight on top of them.
Coming through. You can't let the payload just sit there. Hello there.
Alright, so just note how this gets us shredded instantaneously, right? So we go for the
Yeah.
hard dive once again, and then that's an example of how it just gets us killed. Okay, hard diving kind of immediately once again.
Get into position.
Okay, when you're leaping out, I recommend leaping out to high ground. Watch this Moira's HP bar, because if we notice that HP bar, we're full HP here, and we're also pretty close to primal. Here, all we have to do is just push forwards an extra half an inch, and then we can shoot Moira, and then she dies, right? But instead we pull back, and then she gets away. So keep your eye open on that health bar. And then even after we see that she's low there, we can probably like leap up to their high ground and shoot at her from above here, right? That's another option. That would be an example of
Yeah.
another soft dive we can do. Right, which is what we do. But look at the fight now, right?
Yeah.
1v5. This is an example of a lost fight. So we should be looking to get out if possible. And if we can't get out, we let them kill us. Here we could definitely get out, right? But if we couldn't, then we let them kill us. That way we don't stagger ourselves. Here we're engaging and we should not be because we don't have any teammates with us. And then let's see, does that cause us to stagger? Right? Yes it does, right? So now notice when we come out of spawn, right? By the time we come out of spawn, look at where our team is. They're all the way up there. Which means that now they're walking in without us, and then now they're at a disadvantage. They're less likely to win that fight without us. Alright. So now we are going to do a quick review over everything we talked about, go over the main points of
Yeah.
the session, and then wrap up from there. So we started off on Zarya, right? Zarya, bubble usage, really important. Make sure we're getting better bubbles in. Make sure when you're using bubbles, it's when people are looking at us and shooting at us. Make sure that when we're bubbling, that we're just putting effort into our bubbles. Like, we can't really do very much without it. So typically you're kind of coming at it as a two-parter. Right, part 1, get energy. Part 2, do stuff with energy. And that's kind of
Yeah.
how you play as Zarya. More stuff bubbles. Bubbles, make sure you're using your projected bubble on your main tank more often. Not all the time, just the majority of the time. And then personal bubbles, just make sure we're not kind of holding on to them, but we're looking to use it to get our energy up in fights. And then just make sure we're looking to use it when they're actually going to have people shooting at them and put effort into how we're using it. Because then we actually get energy, we can actually do things. Overall, bubble
Yeah.
usage probably went to, like, I'm trying to think here. Probably went to a medium or medium high priority for you to work on Zarya. Then
Yeah.
moving on to ultimate usage. Ultimate usage, we maybe could have been a little bit more ambitious. Maybe could have gotten a couple extra people in it. But I think we only saw one ult, and then that was it was decent. So not very much here on Zarya. On Zarya, ult usage probably was like a low priority for you to work on. We didn't really see a ton
Yeah.
to work on with that. Monkey, primal, let's, I guess, go back to ability usage here real quick. Ability usage, Bubble, you used pretty good. Not a lot of issues with Bubble. Leap, we talked about just short jumping and then making sure that, all those other kind of techie things, adding the jump in afterwards. And then we'll kind of get to those other aspects of not necessarily how you jump, but like when you're jumping later when we get into
Yeah.
aggression. So overall, probably like a low priority for you to work on your jump usage in particular. Or sorry, your ability usage is what I meant to say. Then your ultimate usage, we did talk a little bit more about. Make sure that we're short jumping within that, and then that'll help a lot. Make sure we're looking to pin
Fun.
people. Go ahead. Do you say something?
Oh yeah.
Oh, are you there?
You were just lagging for a second there.
Oh, okay. Am I good now?
Double kill.
Hello?
Am I good now?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So just to repeat there,
Yeah.
primal
yeah.
usage. Make sure that we
Hold on,
are.
You just started lagging again.
All right. That's weird. Let me. It says I'm at 7 ms. Does it sound staticky?
It's like lagging. I think.
Laggy. Let me try restarting. Hello.
Hello?
Hi. Can you hear me? Well.
I think so.
Okay. If you can't check your Discord because my Discord says I'm at 4 ms, so that means that I have a good
Okay.
connection. So it might be on your
Yeah,
end.
it's probably me.
All
Yeah.
right. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you now.
All right. So primal usage. Make sure you're doing the short jumps. Try to pin people into walls. Look to focus one person. Target priority
Yeah.
within primal, and then use primal after you've already gotten really aggressive and wasted all your HP. Right. That way you can kind of
Yeah.
get more bang for your buck. Overall, though, primal usage is probably like a low to medium or a medium around that range. Right. Then moving
Yeah.
on, Monkey doesn't necessarily have mechanics, but over on Zarya, make sure knowing when to right click versus left click. Right, left click is priority. Left click is what we want to do when we're within range. Right click is when you're really far
Yeah.
out of range, and then you can also right click to burst people down or to boop them around in select circumstances.
Yeah.
Besides that, target priority is a really, really important thing within this category, especially on your monkey, right? Make sure that we're looking to shoot the easiest things to kill, not the hardest things to kill. Come up
Yeah.
with that kill list in your head. Typically, tanks are topping the charts of the hardest things to kill, right? Then besides that, let's see what else is there. I think that's about it for mechanics. So mechanics overall probably went to like a medium priority for you to work on, and then on both characters. Then moving on, you have positioning. Positioning, make sure you're using cover. Good positioning is usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. Make sure we're taking high grounds. High grounds, great. I don't think we really ever took high grounds, right? Make sure we're taking those. Look to
Yeah.
drop from high grounds. Look to just stay up on them because they give you a lot of extra survivability and visibility. And then besides that, look to rotate there in between fights. Besides that, Zarya, look to stay inside your beam range if at all possible. That's your preferred range, is that 15 meters. And then that's about it. So overall,
Yeah.
positioning, I'd probably say goes to a medium priority. And then finally, we have awareness/aggression. So awareness/aggression, these two are two kind of separate categories, but they're very closely related. That's why I combine them here. So your awareness/aggression, awareness, pay attention to your health bar, pay attention to what is happening in the fight. Where's my team at? Where's the enemy team at? What is happening in kill feed, right? When, as a reminder, 1 to 2 is an advantage or a disadvantage. 2 to 3 is a won or lost fight. You play more aggressive or more passive with advantages versus disadvantages. You play you play really, really aggressive in one fight. You get out if you can, or if you can't, you let them kill you in a lost fight. Don't use any ults in won or lost fights. Right? Try not to stagger yourself and look to stagger them as well when you are heavily winning. Right? Additionally, trying to think. Then there are just kind of maybe some other times, like these two categories also entail a lot of odds and ends things, right? Like once in a while we didn't pay attention to something. Once in a while we should have been aggressive when we,
Yeah.
and we were playing passive, right? So this also kind of entails a lot of that. Aggression definitely can we could in the future get a lot more in depth on aggression, but for the moment we're keeping it at that. Overall, probably would say that awareness/aggression goes to like a medium priority for you to work on. So overall, let's put that all in order real quick. It was a little different between Sigma and Zarya, or sorry, not Sigma, Winston and Zarya. So let me put that in order for you real quick. Winston, number 1 probably went to your probably say awareness / aggression. Number 2 went to that. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put number 1 at the mechanics, particularly just that target priority, because that was a pretty important thing. Then awareness / aggression. Then probably after that, because awareness. Sorry, I forgot to include that. Awareness / aggression. Aggression includes the hard diving versus soft diving as well. So that was actually sorry. I'm trying to think here. Apologies for all the confusion. From here on out, this is it, right? Number 1 for Winston was the awareness / aggression. Number 2 is mechanics. Number 3 was probably going to be primal usage. 4 is going to be your general positioning, and then 5 is your ability usage. Then on Zarya, it's mixed up a little bit. Probably number 1 is going to be that bubble usage. That's the most important one. Then number 2 is probably awareness aggression. 3 is positioning. 4 is mechanics, and then 5 is grab usage. So overall, do you got any questions for me about anything?
No, I don't think so. That was pretty good.
Alrighty. So then I'm going to